Imagine spending years, decades even building towards your dream, only for your own family to tear it all down in a single night. I invited my parents and sister to see my brand new home, the sanctuary I'd poured my heart and soul into. They smiled, they complimented, and then they stripped it bare while I slept, leaving me with nothing but echoing rooms and a chilling betrayal. The keys felt heavy and wonderfully real in my palm. 428 Maple Drive. My address. My home. At 29 years old, years of relentless savings, strict budgeting, and working every overtime shift imaginable had culminated in this exact moment. Before me stood my dream home, a beautiful Victorian with a wraparound porch, just like the ones I'd sketched in countless notebooks as a child. While other kids, and especially my younger sister Madison, drew princesses and crowns, I was meticulously designing the life I wanted for myself. This house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was a testament to my grit, my independence, my very being. And I wanted to share that triumph with my family. Looking back now, that desire feels almost laughable, naive even. But at the time it felt natural, expected. My parents, Robert and Diane, had always been a presence in my life, though their love often felt conditional. Madison was the golden child. The one who could do no wrong, even after totaling 3 cars before turning 21 or dropping out of college twice, all on their dime. I, on the other hand, was the responsible one, the quiet achiever, the one who navigated life's challenges without ever truly needing their full attention or approval. I spent months, years really furnishing this place. Every single piece was handpicked, a labor of love. The living room boasted a restored mid-century sofa in emerald velvet, a splurge that cost me 3 months of side hustle money. My dining table? Solid oak, handcrafted by a local artisan, surrounded by 6 chairs with hand-stitched cushions. My bedroom, a haven of peace, held a 4-poster bed with an ornate headboard I'd found at an estate sale, complete with matching dresser and nightstands. Every lamp, every throw pillow, every piece of art on the walls wasn't just decor. It was a story, a memory, a part of me. Even the kitchen, my pride and joy, gleamed with new appliances, copper pots I'd hung myself, and fresh herbs thriving on the windowsill. And in the corner, holding pride of place, was my grandmother's vintage china cabinet, displaying the dishware she'd left me. She was the only family member who ever truly saw me, truly treated me like I mattered. So when I finally sent out that group text, "Come see my new place this Saturday at 6 p.m. I'll cook," it was filled with genuine excitement, with hope. My mom responded with a flurry of celebration emojis. My dad, ever the man of few words, sent a thumbs up. Madison, predictably, offered a backhanded compliment. Finally moving out of that sad apartment. About time, Emily. Saturday arrived, bathed in perfect sunlight. My home glowed, ready to welcome them. My parents pulled up first in their Mercedes, precisely at 6 o'clock. My mother, draped in designer linen, her sunglasses barely concealing her critical gaze. My father, in his golf attire, already glued to his phone. "Oh, Emily," my mother's voice chirped across the yard. "This is absolutely charming." My heart swelled. "Wait until you see inside," I beamed. "I've worked so hard on every room." They stepped through the entrance, and I watched their expressions shift. Politeness melted into something else entirely. My mother's jaw actually dropped. My father stopped scrolling. "You kept this private," my mother exclaimed, her hand flying to her chest. She walked, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors I'd painstakingly refinished, towards the emerald sofa. "Robert, look at this furniture. These pieces must have cost a fortune." "They didn't," I quickly explained, following her. "I found most of them at estate sales and thrift stores. That sofa was being thrown away. I had it reupholstered." My father, meanwhile, was examining the built-in bookshelves I'd filled with my favorite classics. "This is impressive, Emily. Really impressive. I had no idea you had such an eye for design." His words, rare and precious, truly warmed me. Compliments from my father were usually reserved for Madison's fleeting achievements or his golf buddy's business ventures. 20 minutes later, Madison's BMW announced her arrival with a bass-thumping roar. She always believed entrances should be memorable. At 26, my younger sister had never held a job for more than 6 months, yet she somehow maintained a lifestyle that would make influencers jealous, all funded by my parents' seemingly endless generosity. She burst through the door, designer purse swinging, perfectly styled blonde hair catching the evening light. "Sorry I'm late. Had to stop by the spa. You know how it is." I certainly didn't know how it was. I'd been working 2 jobs until 3 months ago just to afford this down payment. Madison stopped in the foyer, her blue eyes sweeping across the space with an almost predatory interest. She moved through each room with the entitlement of someone casually touring a property they might deign to purchase. I watched her manicured fingers trace the intricate carvings of my grandmother's china cabinet, her gaze linger on the art I'd hung, her head peering into my bedroom with undisguised curiosity. "This is actually really nice, Em," she finally said, turning to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm genuinely surprised. I thought you'd end up with some basic starter home in a questionable neighborhood." Thanks, I replied, a bitter taste in my mouth. I still couldn't tell if that was supposed to be a compliment. Dinner preparations went smoothly enough. I'd made my grandmother's lasagna recipe, the one Madison always claimed to adore but never bothered to learn. We gathered around my beautiful oak table, my mother complimenting the place settings, my father pouring wine into the crystal glasses I'd found at an antique mall. The meal began pleasantly. We discussed my father's promotion, my mother's book club drama, Madison's latest entanglement with some guy who owned a boat. Nobody, of course, asked about my job at the marketing firm or the freelance graphic design work that had made this house possible. That was typical. I'd learned to exist in the background, the responsible one who didn't need attention or create problems. Then, Madison let her fork clink deliberately against the china. So, she began, her voice taking on that wheedling tone I'd heard 1,000 times, usually right before she asked for money or tried to borrow something she'd never return. I need to talk to you about something. What's up? I asked, taking a sip of wine, bracing myself. She glanced at our parents, a calculated move, before continuing. I'm moving out of my apartment. The landlord is being totally unreasonable about noise complaints, and honestly, the place is beneath me anyway. I'm looking at bigger places, something that really reflects who I am. Okay, I said slowly, waiting for the punchline, dread pooling in my stomach. Madison leaned forward, her expression shifting to something that might have been mistaken for sweetness. Here's the thing. I need furniture. Like all of it. And appliances. And kitchenware. Basically, everything to make a place livable. And you have all of this. She gestured broadly around the room. It's perfect, Em. Exactly my style. You have such great taste, I never knew. So here's what I'm thinking. You can keep the house, obviously. I mean, the location is kind of whatever, not really my scene. But just hand over all the furniture and essentials. I'll even help coordinate the moving truck. The table fell silent. I stared at my sister, waiting for the laugh, the wink, the sign that this was some elaborate joke. But Madison's face remained serious, expectant, as if she'd just proposed the most reasonable, generous solution in the world. I laughed. The sound was sharp, disbelieving. You must be joking, right? Madison's expression hardened. I'm completely serious. Come on, Em. You're practical. You can refurnish. You're good at finding deals and whatever. Think of it as helping your sister out. Helping me out? My voice rose slightly. Madison, I spent months finding these pieces. I refinished furniture. I saved for specific items. I designed every room. This isn't some random collection of stuff I can just replace. Don't be dramatic, Madison scoffed, rolling her eyes. It's just furniture. You can get more. It's not just furniture. Heat rose in my cheeks. This is my home. Everything here means something to me. My mother cleared her throat. That warning sound she perfected over decades of smoothing over Madison's behavior. Girls, let's not fight. I'm not fighting, Madison said sweetly. I'm asking my sister for help, which I think is perfectly reasonable considering everything Mom and Dad have done for her over the years. That comment landed like a physical blow. Everything they've done for me? Like paying for Madison's 3 attempts at college while I worked full-time to afford community college? Like buying Madison a new car every time she wrecked one, while I drove the same Honda Civic for 12 years? Like funding Madison's self-discovery trips to Europe, while I used my vacation days to work a second job? No, not this time. Madison, I'm sorry, but no, I said firmly. These are my things. You'll need to furnish your own apartment. My sister's face flushed a deep crimson. Wow, just wow. You're being incredibly selfish right now. How is keeping my own belongings selfish? I shot back. Because I need them. Madison's voice acquired that shrill, piercing quality she used when things weren't going her way. You're being unreasonable. My father finally spoke, his tone measured, diplomatic, the same voice he used in high-stakes business negotiations. Emily, maybe you could loan Madison a few pieces, just until she gets on her feet. Dad, I countered, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Madison has never been on her feet in her entire life. You funded everything for her, and she's still broke somehow. That's not fair, my mother interjected. Your sister is figuring things out. She's still young. She's 26, I exclaimed. I had 2 jobs at 26. The tension at the table was suffocating. Madison pushed back her chair, standing with theatrical indignation. Fine, be that way. I can't believe you're going to be so stingy with your own sister. Madison, sit down, my father said wearily. Emily has a point. These are her belongings. My sister remained standing, her eyes glistening with what might have been real tears, or perhaps a well-practiced performance. You all don't understand how hard things are for me right now. I'm struggling, and my own family won't help me. Struggling with what? I challenged. You don't work. You have no bills. Mom and Dad pay for everything. That's not true. I have expenses. Like what? Your nail appointments? Your bottomless mimosa brunches. My mother stood now too, her hands raised in a placating gesture. Okay, everyone needs to calm down. This is Emily's special dinner, and we're ruining it. Let's just drop this topic, have dessert, and enjoy the evening. We can discuss Madison's situation another time. The suggestion hung heavy in the air. Madison slowly sat back down, dabbing at her eyes. My father refilled his wine glass. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, but also strangely victorious. I'd stood my ground. I'd said no to Madison, perhaps for the first time in my adult life. Don't worry, sweetheart, my mother said, reaching across to pat my hand, a gesture I recognized as both comfort and a subtle plea for compliance. Let's just have dinner. We navigated the rest of the meal with forced pleasantness. I served the tiramisu I'd made, and everyone complimented it, carefully avoiding any contentious topics. By 9 o'clock, exhaustion had settled deep into my bones. The emotional whiplash of the evening, combined with a week of work stress, had left me utterly drained. I'm actually really tired, I announced, clearing dessert plates. Would you guys mind if we called it a night? Of course, sweetheart, my mother said, already gathering her purse. Thank you for a lovely dinner. Your home is absolutely beautiful. We said our goodbyes at the door. My father gave me an awkward pat on the shoulder. My mother kissed my cheek, smelling faintly of expensive perfume and something else I couldn't quite place. Madison hugged me stiffly, whispering, "Think about what I said, okay? Family helps family." I watched their Mercedes disappear down the street, then locked the door and headed upstairs. My bedroom, my carefully curated sanctuary, felt like a refuge from the chaos. I changed into pajamas, washed my face, and climbed into my beautiful four-poster bed. Despite everything, I felt a fragile sense of peace. I had defended my boundaries. I had protected what was mine. Sleep came quickly, deep and dreamless. The sunlight woke me around 7:30, streaming through my bedroom window. Something felt off immediately, though I couldn't identify what. The quality of light seemed different. The air in the room thinner. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and that's when I noticed. My nightstands were gone. The dresser that had stood against the far wall had vanished. The ornate mirror above it was missing, leaving only a clean rectangle on the wall where it had protected the paint. My heart started pounding. I threw off the blankets. Wait, where were my blankets? The decorative throw pillows? I was lying on a bare mattress with my single sheet. I stumbled out of bed and down the stairs, my legs feeling like they might give out beneath me. The living room was empty. Completely, chillingly empty. No emerald sofa, no coffee table, no lamps, no artwork. The dining room the same. My oak table gone. The chairs vanished. My grandmother's china cabinet disappeared as if it had never existed. The kitchen was gutted. No copper pots, no appliances beyond the built-in oven and dishwasher. No fresh herbs in terracotta pots. My hands shook as I opened cabinets to find them empty. No dishes, no glasses, no utensils. I ran through every room. The guest bedroom empty. My home office desk, chair, computer, everything gone. The bathroom? No shower curtain, no towels, no toiletries. Even the toilet paper had been taken. My entire house had been stripped bare while I slept. I found my phone, thank God they'd left that. Probably because it had been in bed with me, and called my mother. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I tried my father. Voicemail. Madison's phone went straight to voicemail like it was turned off. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely type out a text. Asterisk, what did you do? Where is all my furniture? Asterisk, no response. I stood in the middle of my empty kitchen, the morning sun streaming through bare windows without curtains to soften it. The silence in the house was deafening, every footstep echoing against the hardwood floors. Even the refrigerator hummed louder without the ambient noise of a lived-in home to mask it. My mind raced through the timeline. Dinner had ended around 9. I'd gone to bed by 9:30, exhausted from the emotional turmoil. They must have started immediately after I fell asleep. How many trips had it taken? How many vehicles? My father's Mercedes couldn't have held more than a lamp or two. Madison's BMW was useless for hauling furniture. They must have rented a truck. Maybe 2 trucks. The planning required for this operation suddenly became sickeningly clear. They hadn't made a spontaneous decision. This was coordinated, deliberate, calculated. While I'd been cooking lasagna and setting the table with my grandmother's china, they'd been plotting how to strip my house bare. The audacity of it staggered me. I walked back through each room, this time looking for clues I'd missed in my initial panic. In the living room, faint scuff marks on the floor where they dragged the sofa. A small dent on the wall where they must have bumped my coffee table. In the dining room, the imprint of the table legs was still visible on the area rug they'd somehow missed taking. Wait, they'd left the rug. I knelt down to examine it. There was a small stain on one corner, barely noticeable but present. Of course, they'd only taken the perfect items, the things that suited Madison's aesthetic. Anything with the slightest flaw had been deemed unworthy of theft. That realization sent a fresh wave of anger through me. They hadn't even stolen out of desperate need. This was selective, curated theft. Madison had shopped through my home like it was a boutique, cherry-picking what she wanted for her new apartment. I called my mother again, my father again, over and over. Each call went unanswered. Finally, after the 7th attempt, my mother texted back. Can't talk. On vacation. We'll call you next week. Don't worry about anything. Vacation? I sank down onto the floor in my empty living room, my back against the wall. They robbed me. My own family had stolen everything I owned while I slept, then left town to celebrate. I pulled up Facebook with shaking hands and found my mother's profile. There, posted 2 hours ago, was a photo of her and my father at an airport. Champagne glasses raised. The caption, #blessed, #luxury life, #vacation mode. The comments were already rolling in from her friends. So jealous. You deserve it. Have fun. I scrolled down and found Madison's post from an hour ago. A selfie of her lounging by what appeared to be a pool, designer sunglasses covering her eyes, a smug smile on her face. 5-day escape with the fam. Thanks mom and dad for the surprise trip. #living my best life, #resort, #spoiled. They were all together at some expensive resort celebrating what they had just taken from me. Any normal person would have broken down, would have sobbed on the floor of their violated home. But something cold and clear settled over me instead. Tears felt like they would have given them too much power, too much satisfaction if they could somehow see me. No, I wouldn't cry. Instead I did this. I stood up, my jaw clenched, and started taking pictures. Every empty room, every blank wall, every gutted cabinet. I documented everything with methodical precision. Then I made a list. I pulled up my email, my bank statements, my purchase receipts. I had records of every single item I bought for this house. Price tags, photos from estate sales, receipts from the woodworker, invoices from the upholsterer. I kept meticulous records because I'd been proud of every bargain found, every careful investment made. The total value of the stolen items came to approximately $43,000. Some pieces were worth even more now, particularly the antiques and custom furniture. I called the police. An officer arrived within an hour. A tired-looking woman named Officer Rodriguez. She took my statement with a sympathy that made my throat tighten. "You're saying your family stole from you?" she asked, pen poised over her notepad. "Yes. They had access because I'd invited them over. I have proof of ownership for everything. And I have their social media posts showing they left town immediately after." Officer Rodriguez looked around the empty house, then back at me. "I'll file the report, but I have to be honest with you. Cases involving family members are complicated. The fact that you gave them access to your home makes this a civil matter more than a criminal one." My blood ran cold. "They committed theft." "I'm not disagreeing," she said gently. "I'm telling you how the department will likely handle this. You'll probably need to pursue this through civil court." She closed her notepad but didn't move to leave immediately. Her expression shifted to something more personal, less official. "Off the record, I had a sister who pulled something similar. Not this extensive, but she took jewelry my grandmother left me. Family court is messy. Document everything, every text, every call, every social media post. And consider whether you really want these people in your life after this." Her words landed with an unexpected, profound weight. This wasn't just about recovering my property anymore. This was about recognizing who my family truly was when their mask slipped off. By the way, if you're still with me on this wild ride, make sure to hit that subscribe button. More unbelievable stories and moments of truth are coming your way, and you won't want to miss them. After she left, I sat in my empty house and pulled out my laptop. Another thing they'd thankfully left since it had been in my bedroom with me. I started researching theft laws, civil suits, small claims court, property rights. But I also found myself deep in articles about family estrangement, toxic relationships, and the psychology of entitlement. One article described golden child syndrome, where parents elevate one sibling above others, creating a dynamic where that child never learns accountability. Madison's face flashed through my mind with every paragraph. Another discussed scapegoat children, the ones who bear the blame and minimize their own needs to maintain family peace. I'd spent 29 years being that person, so accustomed to the role that I'd invited them into my sanctuary without a second thought about potential consequences. The research rabbit hole consumed hours. I learned about grandparent alienation, about adult children who go no contact with toxic parents, about the grief that comes with choosing self-preservation over family loyalty. Every article felt like it was describing my life, holding up a mirror I'd been avoiding for decades. My phone buzzed. Another text from my mother. "Please don't do anything rash. Let's talk when we get back." Rash? As if defending myself against theft was impulsive, as if I was the problem in this equation. That same day I did something else. I called a locksmith and had every single lock in the house changed. Priority service, completed by 2 o'clock that afternoon. I called my insurance company. The representative was sympathetic, but explained that my homeowner's policy had a family member exclusion for theft when access was voluntarily granted. The personal property coverage wouldn't apply. I'd need to pursue recovery through the legal system. The rage built slowly, a cold fire in my chest. But I didn't act on it immediately. Instead, I waited. I slept on my bare mattress that night, using a sleeping bag I borrowed from my neighbor, Mrs. Chan, a kind, elderly woman who brought over casserole and tissues when she saw me documenting the theft through my windows. The next morning, I went to work as usual. My co-workers noticed something was off, probably the dark circles under my eyes or the tight set of my jaw, but I deflected their questions with vague explanations about stress. After work, I drove directly to Madison's apartment. Her building was in an expensive part of town, the kind of place with a doorman and valet parking. I'd been there twice before, both times for parties where Madison had shown off her space like it was a palace, instead of a rental paid for by our parents. The door code she'd given me months ago still worked. She was too lazy to ever change security settings. The door opened easily, and there it was, packed with my belongings. My emerald sofa sat in her living room, covered with throws that didn't match its character. My oak dining table occupied her dining area, set with my grandmother's china. My lamps, my artwork, my coffee table. Everything was arranged throughout her space like she'd simply moved into a fully furnished apartment. I took more pictures, dozens of them, clearly showing my items in her home. I checked the bedrooms and found my four-poster bed in her master, my dresser against the wall, even my decorative pillows arranged on the mattress. Then I left, careful to lock the door behind me. The third day I filed a civil suit. I had everything documented. Purchase receipts, photos of items in my home, photos of the same items in Madison's apartment, the police report, social media evidence showing they'd fled immediately after the theft. My case was airtight, but I didn't stop there. I also contacted every friend and family member whose phone number I had, not to complain or seek sympathy, but to inform them of what had happened. I wrote a calm, factual email detailing the theft, attaching the police report and photos of my empty home. I explained that I was pursuing legal action and wanted them to hear the truth from me, rather than whatever distorted version my parents would inevitably spin. The responses started rolling in within hours. My Aunt Karen, my mother's sister, called immediately. "Emily, I cannot believe what I'm reading. Are you absolutely certain?" "I'm looking at my empty house right now, Aunt Karen. I'm certain. Diane would never." She started and stopped herself. "Actually, knowing how she's always treated Madison versus you, maybe she would." "Oh honey, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do?" Her validation meant more than I'd expected. Other relatives responded similarly. My cousin Brett offered to testify. My Uncle Thomas sent a scathing text to my father that he screenshotted and forwarded to me. "What were you thinking? Emily worked for everything she has. This is despicable." Not everyone sided with me, of course. My father's brother called me vindictive. An old family friend suggested I was overreacting. But the majority of responses ranged from shock to outrage on my behalf. And several relatives admitted they'd always noticed the favoritism, but felt it wasn't their place to comment. I saved every message, every email, every text, not just for legal purposes, but as proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't imagining the dysfunction I'd normalized for so long. I hired a moving company, explaining the unusual situation carefully. They were surprisingly understanding. Apparently, family theft is more common than I'd realized. We scheduled everything for the 5th day, right around when I knew my family would be returning from their vacation. On the 4th day I went shopping. Not for replacements, not for beauty. I bought the cheapest, most hideous furniture I could find. A bright orange couch from a discount outlet that looked like it belonged in a college dorm. Mismatched chairs from a thrift store, the kind with stains and worn upholstery. Plastic patio furniture for my dining room. I bought gaudy lamps, tacky artwork featuring dogs playing poker, and the most offensive decorative items I could locate. I furnished my entire house with this deliberately terrible collection, arranging everything carefully. The house looked like a parody of itself, like a cruel joke. Then I waited. The 5th day arrived. According to their social media, they were flying back that afternoon. I'd taken off work, calling in sick with a legitimacy that wasn't hard to fake given my stress levels. I'd filed an emergency motion with the court that morning, presenting all my evidence. The police report, photos of the theft, documentation of my ownership, and proof of my belongings currently in Madison's apartment. The judge granted me a temporary order for property recovery, which I picked up by 10 o'clock. The sheriff's department agreed to execute the order that same day. At 11:30, 2 deputies met me outside Madison's building with the court order in hand. The doorman took one look at the official documentation and the uniformed officers and immediately cooperated. "I had a feeling something was off when all that furniture showed up," he admitted. "Miss Madison doesn't usually furnish her own place." The deputies supervised as a moving crew. I hired loaded everything back into trucks. With official law enforcement present, the process was legal and documented. Every item was checked against my inventory list and photographed being removed. By 3 o'clock, everything had been delivered back to my house. I spent the next 2 hours working frantically to arrange my actual furniture properly, restoring my home to its original glory. The cheap, hideous items I'd bought went straight into storage at a facility I'd rented specifically for this purpose. My house was beautiful again. Whole again. Reclaimed. I'd also done one more thing. I called an estate lawyer and arranged for my grandmother's china cabinet, the one piece that held real sentimental and familial value, to be appraised and documented separately. That cabinet alone was worth $8,000, and it had been explicitly left to me in my grandmother's will. Taking it wasn't just theft. It was a violation of a testamentary document, an insult to my grandmother's memory. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon my phone buzzed. A text from Madison. Heading home now. Can't wait to sleep in my new amazing bedroom. I smiled, and settled onto my restored emerald sofa to wait. But the waiting wasn't passive. I pulled out my laptop and composed a detailed timeline of everything that had happened, from the dinner invitation to this very moment. I included screenshots of my family's social media posts from their vacation, photos of my stripped house, images of my belongings in Madison's apartment, and documentation of the recovery process. I saved it all in a cloud folder with backups in 3 separate locations. I also drafted a letter I had no intention of sending, but desperately needed to write. It started with Dear Mom, Dad, and Madison, and poured out 29 years of accumulated hurt, dismissed feelings, and suppressed resentments. I wrote about the time in high school when Madison crashed her car, and I had to give up my summer job to drive her places because my parents wouldn't let her face consequences. I wrote about college graduations, Madison's 3 failed attempts fully funded, my associate's degree earned while working full-time barely acknowledged. I wrote about every birthday where her gifts cost thousands, while mine were afterthoughts. Every holiday where her drama eclipsed my achievements. Every family dinner where I existed as a supporting character in the Madison show. The letter ran 12 pages, single-spaced. I would never send it, but writing it felt like lancing a wound that had festered for decades. When I finished, I saved it in my personal files under a folder labeled Closure, and felt something profound release in my chest. Then, I made myself a cup of tea using the kettle I had hidden in my bedroom before the moving company arrived. A small precaution that had paid off, and waited for my phone to ring. It rang at 5:20. Madison's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring through to voicemail. It rang again immediately. And again. And again. Finally, I answered on the 5th call. Where is everything? Madison's scream was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. What did you do? I recovered my stolen property, I said, my voice calm, steady, and utterly devoid of emotion. All of it is back in my home where it belongs. You can't do that. You had no right. Actually, I had every right. You stole from me. I filed a police report and obtained a court order for property recovery. The sheriff's department supervised the return of my belongings. Check your mail. You'll be receiving additional court documents shortly for the civil suit. The sound that came through the phone was incoherent, a terrifying mix of shrieking and sobbing. In the background, I could hear my mother's voice, high-pitched and panicked. What do you mean everything's gone? You're insane. Madison finally managed actual words again. You're vindictive and horrible, and I can't believe you do this to family. Family doesn't rob each other blind and then leave town, I replied, my voice still unervingly calm. But you're right about one thing. I did do this. I did it methodically, legally, and completely. My father's voice came through the phone now. She must have put me on speaker. Emily, this is going too far. Your sister needed those things. Then she should have bought her own furniture like an adult, I shot back. We can work this out, my mother pleaded, her voice cracking. Come over. Let's talk about this reasonably. There's nothing to talk about. My belongings are mine. You stole them. I took them back. The civil suit will proceed. And just so you know, that china cabinet you took, the one Grandma left specifically to me in her will, that's a separate legal issue. Stealing inherited items is taken very seriously. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Madison started screaming again. I hate you. You're dead to me. Dead. Funny, I said, a bitter smile touching my lips. I felt pretty dead to all of you when you stripped my house and left for vacation. Enjoy your empty apartment, Madison. You finally got what you actually earned in life. Nothing. I hung up. My phone exploded with calls and texts over the next hour. My mother begging me to reconsider. My father trying to negotiate. Madison sending messages that ranged from threats to sobbing apologies to more threats. I blocked them all. The civil suit moved forward. My lawyer was confident we'd win, especially with the meticulous documentation I'd provided. The process would take several months, but the emergency court order had already accomplished the most important goal: getting my property back. But more than the lawsuit, more than getting my money back for the violation and distress, what truly mattered was the boundary I had finally drawn. 3 days after the recovery, my mother showed up at my door. I'd been expecting this, so I was prepared. I opened the door, but didn't invite her inside. "Emily, please," she started, tears already welling in her eyes. "Your sister is devastated. She has nothing. She's sleeping on an air mattress. She has everything you've given her for 26 years, I stated flatly. A free ride, unlimited funding, and zero consequences for her actions. What she doesn't have is my furniture." My mother recoiled. "I taught you better than this. Family forgives family. You taught me that my feelings don't matter. That Madison's wants supersede my needs. That I'm supposed to just accept being walked over, because keeping the peace is more important than my dignity." My mother's eyes welled with tears. "I never meant for you to feel that way. Whether you meant it or not, that's what you did," I countered, my voice firm. "You raised one daughter to believe the world owes her everything and another daughter to believe she's lucky to get scraps. I'm done being that person. So you're just going to cut us off? Your own family." "I'm protecting myself from people who hurt me," I said, my gaze unwavering. "It doesn't matter that we share DNA. What you did was wrong, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise to make you comfortable." My mother stood on my porch for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Part of me, the old Emily, wanted to comfort her, to apologize, to smooth everything over like I'd always done. But a stronger part of me, the new Emily, stood firm. "I love you, Mom," I said quietly, "but I love myself more. And that means I can't have people in my life who treat me like a resource to be exploited." She left without another word. The lawsuit concluded 8 months later. I won every cent I'd asked for. $43,000, plus court costs and legal fees. Madison was ordered to pay it, though I knew my parents would undoubtedly foot the bill. The judge had been particularly unimpressed with the theft of inherited property, and had included additional damages for the violation of my grandmother's will and the emotional distress caused. My family didn't attend the court date. Their lawyer handled everything remotely. I used some of the money to buy additional security for my home cameras, a new alarm system, reinforced locks. The rest I put into savings, continuing the financial discipline that had gotten me here in the first place. 6 months after everything happened, I started dating someone I'd met through a friend. His name was James, and when I told him the story of what my family had done, his response was simple, profound. "They sound toxic. You deserve better." It was the first time anyone had ever said that to me, that I deserved better. Not that I should forgive, or that family is complicated, or that I should try to see things from their perspective. Just that I deserved better. Period. Full stop. A year later, I got a wedding invitation in the mail. Madison was getting married to the boat owner. The invitation was addressed to me, though there was no personal note, no phone call, nothing but my name on an envelope. I threw it away without responding. My mother called that evening. "Did you get Madison's invitation?" "Yes." "Are you coming?" "No." There was a long pause. "She's your sister, Emily. She's someone who stole from me and never apologized. That's not what sisters do. She was young and made a mistake. She was 26 and made a choice. There's a difference." My mother sighed, that same weary sound she'd always made when I wouldn't cooperate with whatever plan had been made without my input. "Your father and I miss you. We were hoping you'd make the first move. Show us you're ready to move past this." "I am past it," I said, my voice unwavering. "I'm past accepting mistreatment. If you miss me, you're welcome to apologize and rebuild on honest terms, but I won't come crawling back just to make your life easier." She hung up without saying goodbye. 2 years after the theft, I was promoted to senior marketing director at my firm. My house appreciated in value by 20%. James moved in with me, bringing his own furniture, which we blended with mine to make the space ours. We adopted a dog named Copper, who loved to sleep on the emerald sofa that had started everything. I never heard from Madison again. Social media showed me glimpses of her life. The wedding, expensive, ostentatious. The honeymoon, Bali. The new house bought by my parents. She looked happy in the photos, though I often wondered if she ever thought about what she'd done. Probably not. People like Madison rarely see themselves as the villains in their own stories. My parents sent Christmas cards each year, signed with their names, but no personal message. I didn't send any back. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled things. If I wish I tried harder to maintain the relationship, to forgive and forget, to be the bigger person. The answer is no. What my family did wasn't just about furniture. It was about respect, boundaries, and basic human decency. They saw me as someone they could use. Someone whose hard work and careful planning could be exploited for Madison's benefit without consequence. Standing up for myself cost me my family, but what I gained was infinitely more valuable. My self-respect, my peace of mind, and the unshakable knowledge that I won't accept mistreatment from anyone, regardless of how we're related. My house still stands at 428 Maple Drive. Still beautiful. Still mine. Every piece of furniture tells a story of resilience and self-worth. The emerald sofa represents the boundary I finally learned to draw. The oak table symbolizes the value of earning what you have. My grandmother's china cabinet holds memories of the one person who saw me for who I truly was. I'm engaged to James now. We're planning a small wedding, intimate and meaningful, with people who actually care about us. My guest list includes friends, colleagues, and Mrs. Chan from next door. It doesn't include my parents or my sister. Sometimes I drive past Madison's old building, or her new one that my parents bought. I wonder if she furnished it with her own money this time, or if they bought everything for her again. I wonder if she ever learned anything from what happened, but mostly I don't think about them at all. I'm too busy living my life, enjoying my home, and building a future with someone who treats me like I matter. The 5 days they spent on vacation, celebrating what they'd stolen from me, cost them a daughter. The 5 days I spent planning my revenge. No, not revenge, my reclamation gave me back my life. Some people might call me bitter or vindictive, but I call myself free. Free from being the family doormat. Free from sacrificing my happiness for theirs. Free from pretending that abuse is acceptable when it comes from people who share your DNA. My dream house is still my dream house, but now it's also my fortress, my sanctuary, and my constant reminder that I'm strong enough to protect what's mine, even when the threat comes from people who should have protected me instead. Tell me, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd really love to hear from you.